Welcome back, everyone. Oh, somebody's here. Okay, so as you can see by the title, I'm coming to you from Houston. I did announce that last week, and so today I'll give you my 5 tips if you're a nurse practitioner thinking about moving to a new state, and I'll give you my 5 tips for in terms of licensure, credentialing, and I'll go over all the costs, how much it cost me. Yeah, I think that's the main thing. And so we'll start off with health and wellness like we do every week. If you're new here, I'm Dr. Kimberly Madison, and I go live every weekend, at least I have been since December of the last year, and during this Nurse Practitioner Entrepreneur Diary series. And so we typically go over we'll touch on the same things as I share my life as a blueprint or a case study. And my dream is that maybe one day we'll have prereqs for nursing and or it'll be part of the standard curriculum, and maybe someone will use my content and study it, because there's certainly a lot of things you can learn from this, things you can do much better, much more faster. And so I'm just here sharing my life because so many of you watching this now, you are or want to be a nurse practitioner. Maybe you're interested in entrepreneurship, and maybe you have a passion for dermatology. There's a growing number of us who fit that category, and we're all out here just trying to figure it out together. So I'm just here sharing my story. We always start off with some health and wellness, because if you're out here taking care of other people, it's my belief that you should also be taking care of yourself. I'll give you a social media tip for today. We'll talk about Houston, and we'll continue behind the scenes on the Mahogany Telederm Nurse Internship. Talk a little bit more about the Dermatology DNP Project Ideas ebook that will be available soon. And then how you can work with me closely and see me in person through our DNP Dermatology MPPA group or our new sister group, Derm MPs and PAs of Atlanta. So as you can see, like I said, I've been going live every weekend, and it's been a journey. You know, I'm trying to be as transparent as possible about this journey. It's not linear. I've been online like this, making content on YouTube for 1 year, but 2 years and Instagram or LinkedIn started this year too. But Instagram, it's been almost 2 years. And so just trying to share what it could be like. And for some people, it's super fast, but certainly if you have a lot going on like I have, it can be take a little bit longer. And it's been really actually a blessing, because it's helped me refine the vision that much more. And of course, the longer you stay in it, you're going to learn a lot more too. So one thing I've struggled with is getting a set time. So Sunday has seemed to work out really good. And today's the first day where I actually worked on, so I've been posting to the community tab, which just helps you kind of stay in the algorithm. But also, if you want to go live, you can set it up in advance. And maybe you saw that I was going to be coming on today. So I'm going to see if I can be consistent with that. You know, the whole theme is be consistent and persistent. If you do that, your business will grow. You will continue to grow. You will continue to get there, wherever there might be for you. So I did change up the thumbnail a little bit. So we'll see. So we're going to start off with our devotional. And so, like I said, we always start off with health and wellness, and I read a devotional from a devotional. Oh, maybe that's my dad that's on. And so I do have a little booklet that I was reading, but then I found this devotional on anxiety. And so I like that one a lot, because I think all of us in healthcare, especially if you take care of patients, you live with a certain degree of anxiety. And so I think this devotional plan is really helpful. Certainly you can go, there's devotionals everywhere, words of affirmation, all kinds of Bibles, whatever you feel more drawn towards. But if you use this one in particular, this is the Holy Bible app. And you can, on the home screen, they have a section called plans, and you can go in there and you can put in keywords, and it will give you some options. And it even has an audio feature, which I'm a big fan of for people who are clinicians and really busy. Always take advantage of these audio features so that you can continue to, invest in your spirituality, invest in learning, because all these apps and tools pretty much have an audio feature. And so while you're busy charting, cleaning, working out, whatever the case may be, you can still get these other things done and not feel like you're behind in some areas. So this one is titled A Posture of Worship. The bondage of anxiety has the potential to keep us from maneuvering into the plans and purposes of God. Your soul is cherished by God, and you would not be here unless the Lord had much to display in and through your life in your unique sphere of influence. To agree with a life of habitual fear is to agree with a life void of faith. God always responds to faith, so choosing to trust Him paves the way for the miraculous. One way to position our hearts for this kind of faith that overcomes fear is through a posture of worship. In hindsight to the days of Moses, we can see that he was purposed for great things. Early on, after the killing of an Egyptian man, Moses assumed a posture of disqualification. At the onset, his grave mistaken seemed unforgivable, and the shame of his actions drove him into the wilderness. It took years before he finally encountered God again. Even when the plans for his life were revealed, the great responsibility seemed too much to bear. His mind had not shifted, so lingering and persistent fears from his past came back to haunt him. He was focused more on his shortcomings and the possibility of failure than the God who chose him for the task. Because of this, time and time again, we see God reassuring Moses that the task was not his to complete alone. The feat was a master plan of the mastermind deliverer who uses human vessels to carry out his purpose. Now, you best believe that the posture of disqualification is easy to stay frozen in. Reminders of your past, insecurities, and doubts can sometimes be constant. But once you give into God's reassurances, like Moses eventually did, know that it's his plan that takes over. However disqualified you feel, God can have his way when you display a heart that is yielded to his delivering strategy. When we position our hearts in worship rather than in disqualification, we are telling God that we are in agreement with his purposes. It's his master plan, not ours, and his goal is deliverance. So, how do we shift to a posture of worship? My encouragement to you would be to do what has worked in the past. Is it memorizing scriptures on God's faithfulness? Is it turning on a song about how Christ is your deliverer? Is it journaling about your fears and making them a topic of discussion with Jesus? Even surrounding yourself with a prayerful community who shakes you out of a posture of disqualification can change everything. Approaching Jesus today with a posture of worship makes you a conduit of miraculous deliverance. And so there's always a little piece at the bottom for reflection, which you can reflect on the rest of the week. So for this week, how can you relate to the feelings that Moses might have been going through before he came out of the land of Midian? What is your favorite way to take a posture of worship? How do you plan to worship God this week? And our scripture comes from Exodus chapter 3, verse 4. And when Jehovah saw, he turned aside to see. God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Amen. Okay, so health and wellness. So I am so happy so I did do one thing since I saw you last for my health and wellness. And I ordered, so actually I finally did those white strips, the Crest white strips that I bought, I think like 6 months ago. I finally did them. You sit them on for 30 minutes and then you take them off. Honestly, I can't tell if it's a huge difference, but I plan, and they only really cut until like right here, I would say. So my plan is actually to do them again and just finish this part out. And I don't know, maybe I'll take a picture this time so I can have a better review to give you. But I think I see this, it's a subtle difference, if anything, and maybe because I'm looking, if you look for stuff, you'll find it. So I do see a subtle difference between these teeth and this, which is what's motivated me to do the others, the rest, the back here. So I'll come back next week and let you know what that is like. I'm so happy, because when I used to work at the bedside, I used to keep track of my steps, and I could get like 15,000 to 20,000 steps per shift. I was also walking or biking to work, especially when at the end. And since I started being an MP, even though I'm working 5 days a week, I don't see patients that long. My days are fairly short. Like I don't work 8-hour days. And so I'm doing a lot of standing, take a few steps, stand, and that's the whole day, right? And so when I measure those steps, I'm only getting like 1,000, maybe 2,000 on a good day. So that's nothing. And so I mentioned that I've improved my sleep over the last year because I was having such a hard time losing weight that I started focusing on other things that could be contributing because I had already had a pretty clean diet. I upped my workout, it's been consistent. So I thought maybe the cortisol levels had something to do with it. So I've been trying to get to bed before midnight, and that has been a great um, change. And so, but I still feel like I'm doing a lot of sitting with working on social media, working on everything. Everything's on the computer, even charting, all those kind of things. So I'm so happy to say I ordered a walking pad. It should be getting here today. If he starts barking off his head off, that might mean they're dropping it off. And so that will be wonderful. Just need to find a place for it. They're pretty small. I bought my mom one earlier in the year. The one I bought, I watched a little video. It can even slide under the bed. And it doesn't have bars. So I want to get like what do you call it? Standing desk. I want one that can go up and down. So when I'm not using it, which will be rarely, it can just be off to the side. And so hopefully by next week I will have a standing desk. And I'll be so happy to just be moving more. Like, because I told you last week, right now I work out 3 days a week, running and lifting. And the goal is to get to 4. But even then I was just thinking, like, is that even still enough? And even then, always trying to squeeze things in. It's like, I can just get in more per day. And so I'll keep you posted on that. And right now, like, you can get there's a pretty good handful of selections that are under $200. Certainly you can find some that are more expensive. But yeah, so that's that. And so by the time you see me next week, I plan to have my mammogram scheduled. I'm going to buy some more glasses. And actually, I think I'm going to post some of my selections on social media this week. Some different glasses that I've fallen in love with. Get your opinion on that. And then before I left Virginia, I saw my dermatology PA, Leah Waller. She's out in Reston. And she'd given me a new prescription for my compounded medication that I use at night. And so she actually had to switch pharmacies because the pharmacy that we use there, they don't ship out here. But the other most important feature was that she needed a pharmacy that will do temperature controlled deliveries. And so because of this temperature here in Houston, she picked a pharmacy that's out here in the Midwest. And so she told me to wait till I got settled to request that prescription to be delivered so that they can keep in mind the temperature at the time. So yeah, looking forward to, but next week I'll be able to give you updates on that. And if you don't know, I have talked about my atopic dermatitis that caused post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. That was about 2 years ago now. And then I tried handling it myself for a good while. And then I went to Leah to help get it managed. And so we're at a really good place. And now that I'm here, hopefully, I did see a little change in my skin with fall, even though it's not like a real fall here. It was right before I moved, I saw that change. And it seems to have calmed down now that I've been here for 3 weeks. So yeah, I just really try to stay on top of my moisturizer and avoid things that are irritating. So I don't use any actives so I use a vitamin C on my face. I don't use it on my neck. It was irritating, but pretty much everything else I can put on my neck that I put on my face, which is a retinol and the compounded medication. And yeah, I think that covers that. And then social media tips. So I always give a social media tip. This one is going to be about putting together a content calendar. So one of my favorite websites is Canva. It's a free website. They have an app too. I use both of them pretty much daily. And there's a free version, there's a paid version. I do use the paid version, which allows you to have team members and access to some of their other features, like removing the background, certain audio editing and magic erasers and stuff like that. But certainly if you're in the beginning or you want to put your finances somewhere else, you can get away with the free version and still make a lot of really great content. And on there, they have a content calendar You just put in the search box. And so you can also go to Google, you can go to ChatGPT. But if you're struggling for ideas, depending on what you're focused on, like a lot of the stuff I do is education. So for me, there's no end to what you can educate on. Like for instance, with the podcast, there's all these diseases, there's all these body systems, treatments, complications, medications, specialists, um, people's personal stories and journeys. So for me, that's an area of content that's, there's no scarcity of ideas. But some things, and sometimes some people, if you're new and you are struggling to be creative, um, that can be a really great way to get you started. And then if you are struggling to be creative, one of my other tips would be to find some solitude and some peace so you can hear your own thoughts. There's a lot of research out there that really points to the beginning of the morning before dawn specifically as a really good time to be tapped into your cognitive processes so that you can really be really creative at that time. But, life can be tough if you're working multiple jobs, if you're in school, if you're raising a family, if you're taking care of your family. And so you will have to, just do what works best for you, but just try to carve out some time to yourself that's peaceful. And peaceful is relative, right? It might be being outside, it might be being in the tub, but just so you can hear your own thoughts and not be distracted by other people's thoughts. So if you're struggling with creativity, that would be my tip, and take advantage of the internet. So Houston, I'm here in Houston, went to church this morning, and they had like a little business expo. Actually, I thought it was going to, I didn't know until after the service they announced it, but I thought that when they announced it, it was like you can go there and get resources, but actually it was people who had their own business and it was just like a marketplace. But the great thing about it, not only did I meet some people, some entrepreneurs, I found some people who I'm going to bring on the podcast. One in particular, she's a pediatric what do you call it? Speech therapist. And on her brochure, she mentioned like a bunch of areas that, she's kind of focused on. And one of them is treating people on the autism spectrum. And so for April is Autism Awareness Month. I invited her to come on to tell her journey, because actually her mom, her grandma, some of the people in her family, they were all nurses. And so she originally, kind of went that route, did some shadowing and was like, this is not for me. And then she ended up going this route, and she has her own practice. And so she's going to come on, we'll tell her story, and she'll come on and talk about the speech therapy that she does for people on the spectrum. I've given her the opportunity that we can film either remotely, like we do a lot of episodes, or I can come to her location and we can film in person and do a tour of the space. I actually have someone else I just corresponded with this week also here in Houston. They do a combination of primary care and women's health. And so I want to go there and tour their space too, just because so that the patient has a better understanding of what to expect. One of the issues we have is getting people in and getting them in early. And so insurance is a problem, transportation, all those social determinants of health, but also fear, just not knowing what to expect. And so that's why we spend a lot of time talking about the patient experience and this is great for you too. If you are an entrepreneur and you're putting together a website, one of the business coaching communities that I joined at the beginning of the year, there was like a little breakout, and we had met like one Sunday, and I'm so glad I joined, because that's where I learned about, I don't know if it's not called the user experience, but anyway, what it is and we do this in your DNP programs, you do get the opportunity to work on this. If you've ever done like a fishtail or like a workflow, it's basically the workflow. So this is how your customer finds you, right? So if you put together how do people know you exist? What's that first point of contact? Is it Google? Is it social media? So you identify all the points, that word of mouth. Maybe you're in a directory. So you put in all the points of entry that someone might find you. And then you map out, it might even be customer mapping. I don't remember what the term is. If you know, let me know in the description box. Then you map out the next steps to get to, let's say, make a purchase, make an appointment, sign up for like a subscription model. And so this way you have a good idea of how you get your clients, what happens in each phase. Maybe the first phase is just a consultation, or maybe it's like they said something in the description box or they give you their email, and in exchange, you give them like a free flyer or some guide, or they get access to something, right? That's your lead. How do you attract people? How do you get that first contact? And then you can evaluate what's happening at that point. How many of those people then converted to paying customers? And how many of those people are converted to people who sign up for your subscription? How many of those people actually keep coming back, right? Because you'll have people who subscribe to your subscription, but then they don't come back, just like the gym. And so, when we talk about the patient experience, it's not only great for the patient to understand, to decrease that fear and give them awareness of like, oh, this is how I make an appointment. Oh, it's not really that hard. This is who I'll talk to. So I won't be surprised or shocked when I don't talk to a doctor or the person I anticipated talking to. Oh, this is what I can expect when I go. There's going to be a wait. So I won't be frustrated, or so that I know that, I need to ask for more time off of work, or whatever the case may be, so that people can just have those fears decreased. But also, you as an entrepreneur can have a good idea, especially if you're still building your business. Oh, I need to make sure this is, and actually, when you're talking about your website specifically, that's called like the user experience, UX, UI, UX, something like that. Kind of user friendly. What's it going to be like when someone who maybe has low digital literacy comes to visit your website? Is it easy and clear on what you do, how you do it, and how they can become a patient or a client of yours? And so I'm looking forward to doing more in-person meetings. Speaking of in-person, the National Black Nurse Practitioner Association is based here in Houston. I had the opportunity to chat with them earlier in the year for the podcast. The whole board met with me, agreed to come on the show. We picked 2 topics to discuss, and everybody's very busy, so we weren't able to film as early as we wanted to. But I actually didn't. I was actually okay with that because I knew I was moving, and the opportunity to film in person, especially because it would be the most number of people I've recorded at one time. It seemed a lot easier to do in person. And so now that I'm here, I'm looking forward to that. I've mentioned before, Afrotech is this week, and so they will have a table at some point. And so I'll be at the events this week, and they have an event next month too that I'll be attending with my mentee. And so yeah, looking forward to meeting them in person for one, and also being able to film more things in person. And so we've done a couple things in person on the podcast. Like we were at the studio this year, we're at Alicia's house. And so that helped me figure, and I have mics, I have 4 mics, and I have the camera. So it's just about kind of setting up logistically so it sounds good. I'm a little nervous because it's like you have all these people, you're on their time, and I just want to make sure we get it right. So, but I am looking forward to that. Let's see. So yeah, that's that. So my 5 tips, if you're looking to relocate, the first thing is start early. Start early because it can take so long to get your license. So if it's your first license, I'm not even talking about your first license. Let's talk about endorsement. And so I tried to get this license last year, and I love to tell this story because I don't think enough people either take this route or talk about it. But if you don't use your NP license for a certain amount of time, and when you go to renew it, it might not be as seamless as you want. And this is happening more often because a lot of people who have advanced degrees are going back to the bedside, either for flexible schedule, more money in some cases, for a number of reasons. And so if you don't utilize that degree that you want to renew, you might come across some issues. And so when I tried to get it last year, because I had graduated 4 years prior, the pharmacology was expired. So Texas specifically wanted me to either go back for a pharm course for a whole semester or precept with someone for like 400 hours. And the board they can't tell you what to do, but they can give like suggestions. And so they say, like, apply for a job, tell them, ask them to precept you for 400 hours, and then they'll know, and then say, after that, then I can get hired. Well, I mean, you have to think about it from an employer standpoint. employers want people who are experienced and they want people who are licensed. So if you're not experienced or licensed, why would they make that investment? And so, and then I was not going back for a semester of pharmacology. So that's how I ended up back home, and I knew I was going to get a job there. Now, all the other states, including the other places where I'm licensed, their only requirement was continuing education credits, which Texas didn't even offer as a suggestion, besides the full semester. And so I mentioned before, I think between Virginia and Arizona, and maybe I can't remember what DC's requirements were, but it's like 40. I know Virginia had the most, which was 48. I want to say Arizona's was 45. And then contact. So anyway, by the time I did all of those farm hours and contact hours, because you can do a course and maybe they give you 5 pharmacology CEs, but you might get 10 contact. So that's how you can end up with like so many. I think I had like either 75 or 100. I've said the number before. So I had more than enough. And so yeah, so you got to start early because, for instance, my license in Virginia, I got that in 3 weeks. My DC one, that took a very long time. I applied for that. I want to say, what is this? 24, 23, maybe 22, maybe. I didn't apply for it while I was still traveling because once you apply, you're in that cycle of having to keep paying for it, and so I postponed it. So let's say it was I think it might have been September 22. I applied for it, and then it was just a lot of back and forth over the internet with really lack of response. And DC is known for taking a long time. And since I still was traveling, I really didn't need it. I just didn't want to wait too long to get it. I didn't push it. But then as it got closer to me stopping traveling, then I started to push it. So then after, I think it was like a whole year of doing that, I just was home one Christmas and I just went to the Department of Health, and within like 20 minutes I had it. So that one took me the longest, but that's like an outlier experience. Virginia was the fastest. That was 3 weeks. Arizona was, I want to say, 8 to 12 weeks. So with that, I had to, when I got the Arizona license, I was living in Colorado. I drove from the Springs to Denver, did my fingerprints, and then either the 8 weeks started at that point once they received the fingerprints, or the whole time was 8 to 12 weeks. I don't remember. So that was kind of a long one. And then Texas, I applied for that in July. And then every time you like correspond back and forth, they say, you have up to a 15-day wait for a response. So they first came back and said they needed me to. So in June, my DC license for my RN and my MP expired. And I saw that my ANCC for my board certification was going to expire in August. So I figured I might as well do everything right now, because most of the time, if you renew for something and something else is about to expire, they'll say, oh, just, renew it now so we don't have to come back and do this again. So I renewed everything in July, and then in June. And then in July, I applied to Texas. The first thing Texas came back and said, oh, we want to see your original ANCC certification. So then I uploaded that, and I had to wait 2 weeks for them to respond. Then they wanted something else. Oh, so when I filled out the application, because I went to GW for my BS in the DNP program, while I was there, the nursing school moved from DC to Virginia. So they still had courses in DC. And of course, GW's main campus is in DC. But the nursing school itself, they built a new building out in Virginia. And on the nursing website for GW, they have their Virginia website. So when I filled out the Texas application, putting GW's address, I put Virginia. But the school, when they filled out their part to verify, they put DC. So then Texas came and said, oh, your address doesn't match with what the school put. So then I emailed the school to clarify and to say, look, other people might come into this problem. Of course, the school said they hadn't had that problem yet, but they do know Texas is unique. And so I had copied one of my favorite professors on that email because I knew she would take it seriously, something would happen with that. So then I just went back and updated the application, and thank God I didn't have to do the whole thing again, because it did take a while because you had to fill out so many things. It was basically, the Texas one was basically like a very first application, whereas the other ones were endorsement. And that's what I was anticipating, to do the endorsement because it was going to be faster, but that was not the case. So then I uploaded the new application with the DC address. So this is like 2 months now between that whole 15-day waiting period, because when they said the thing about the address wasn't right, then I responded and I, said, the school moved while I was there. This is the address on the website, blah, blah, blah. And they were just like, well, just have this school, just make sure your application matches what the school has. So between all of that, it was like a 2-month period. And so that's tip number one, is start early. Not only start early in getting your application in and knowing what you need to do, like fingerprints and those kind of things, but also telling your employer. So if you plan to leave that employer, it's probably a good idea to know in your contract what that window period is. For me, I was going to stay with my company. And so I wanted to give them enough time to post the announcement, interview people, get them in, get their contract signed, and then have them get through their onboarding and then be able to go through their orientation and have that all lined up with me leaving. And so I told them back in July. And even 3 months before that, I was thinking, what am I going to do? I wasn't quite sure I was going to move. I was on the fence about it. And I told you the first 6 months, I already told you how that went. So basically for the whole year, I feel like I've just been going. And really, I feel like I've been going since I started that BSN to DNP program. So for me, the last 7 years have just been like one continuous run. And so I'm happy to sit down and rest. And so that's what I've been doing. So yeah, my first tip, start early in terms of your research. Read your scope of practice, especially if you're moving from a state that was different. What is it called? Levels of authority. What is that called? Yeah, your level of authority. So Virginia is restricted. So I had a collaborating physician there, which, if you're not familiar, and every state's going to be so different. But in my case, I had a collaborating physician who actually had two in the last year in Virginia. And so maybe like the first 6 months I had one. We met on via, in a video meeting. Prior to that, he emailed me, asked for to send some charts his way. He picked out the ones he wanted to review. He sent me like a written report of his feedback, and then we had a meeting verbally talking about it. I was so nervous leading up to that, but it couldn't have gone any better. It was such a positive experience. It was only helpful and educational, and it gave me a lot of confidence because you didn't have a lot of like corrections, and then it gave us a chance to talk about some of my hardest etiologies, and that helped tremendously. And then after that, when we switched, I actually never even met that physician in person, and we never did a video chat. It was all email. I sent some charts. He sent a report with his feedback, and that was it. And so it can vary depending on where you live in terms of how that relationship goes. Now, in Virginia specifically, when I was in NP school, they changed the rules. And so I want to say you have to work with a collaborating physician for like 2 years, maybe 4. It's something kind of short. And then after that, you can be independent, I think. So that's Virginia. DC is completely full practice. So I had no collaborating physician there. And Arizona is also full practice. Texas is restricted. So I have a collaborating physician who I just got assigned to. I haven't met them yet. But since it's the same company, I anticipate it will be like the same process. So that's how collaborating physicians work. So my second tip is look at the CE criteria. So like I mentioned, each state had different continuing education requirements. And so the best tip for that, I use there's a whole bunch of people out here offering CEs, but I use NetCE, and the other ones are just like this. When you go to the website, you put the state that you want to get your license, and it will put all the required courses and then all the recommended courses, things like that. And then you can search other things. So I did all the required courses for the state, and then I handpicked some. So like I like to stay on top of like high blood pressure, diabetes. I don't even think I finished the diabetes one. I picked Botox. There might have been another kind of derm-related one. And by picking a package, it kind of saves you a little bit of money there. But you can also do like a la carte. So that's something good to do. And you could probably get that reimbursed by your employer. At the time that I did it, I guess I should have submitted those CEs. But the thing about if you use CEs and you are looking to change jobs, you need to look at your contract, because sometimes if you accept reimbursement from your employer, you can't leave or you'll have to pay them back. So maybe if you use the CEs, if you use their reimbursement, maybe they want you to stay another 6 months or 12 months. And so you really need to look at that. And so I wasn't sure if I was going to stay, so I didn't use any of my CE tuition, my reimbursement, for a very long time, up until this Texas transfer, because I didn't want to have that hang over my head. So that's something to really look at. The other third tip is have a compact. Depending on if you're planning to travel a lot, so if you're going to be a nurse practitioner, you also have to always maintain your registered nurse license. There's state-based ones, and then there's the federal one, like if you work for the VA or the military, and then there's the compact, right? A lot of us have the compact, so if you're a traveler, it makes life easier. Not every state is in the compact, but a lot of them are. DC is not in the compact, but Virginia, Texas, and Arizona are, so I was able to use that. But there is like a little clause on the Board of Nursing websites that if you're going to stay and practice, maybe like after a year or something, then they recommend that you just get the state one, even still. So just look at that information. The fourth tip is look at your employer reimbursement, look at those details. And then, be organized. Have a calendar, get it out of your head, and just check things off along the way. Work it backwards. If you're like, okay, I want to move in October, and it's going to take 8 to 12 weeks to get this license, this is where I want to start beginning this process, right? And the sooner the better, so you don't have any surprises, because moving itself is already kind of a stressful time. So let's talk about the money for that. So like I said, in June, I had to renew RN, NP, and I did my ANCC. So RN, NP, those are every 2 years. And then your certification, whether you do ANCC or the AANP, I don't know about the AANP, honestly. I don't know, because I don't have that one. But for ANCC, it's every 5 years. So ANCC was $375. The DC and RN and NP was together, so that's $313. Texas was $150. Of course, my CPR expired, so that was $189, and in total was $1,027, which was I was a little surprised to see that. And just last year, I renewed Virginia, and I got my Arizona license, and so next year I'll do those two, and then I actually have a certification exam tomorrow, and I think that one expires every 5 years. So I'm actually supposed to be done talking to you guys already, because I need to keep studying. So if you have any questions about licensure as an MP, you can just let me know in the comments, or you can message me directly through the blog. The other thing I will say, so because I transferred my company, I didn't have to worry about credentialing. They're handling that. And some of that's still happening. And so that can take a little bit of time. And so just reach out to your employer. Also, if you need your DEA, you can ask if the new employer if they'll be willing to hire you and then pay for that once you're hired. So you can mention that in your contract and your negotiation and your interview. It just depends on how early you start. So I know one MP who I talked to recently, she has to give her company 3 months notice. And it's not unusual for you to interview that far in advance and to tell the company, okay, I can't start for another 3 months. As a provider, that's not unusual. And so you can have your interview, ask what's going to get covered as a new employee, or negotiate. And then maybe say they only want to pay you like $150 and you're asking for $160. And they're like, no, we're not going to budge on that because you don't have experience, right? So, okay, well, would you be willing to cover my licensure, my CEs, and my DEA? They might say, okay, yeah, we'll do that, whatever, right? So so you're doing that 3 months out, you get the job, you sign your contract, then you go tell your employer, I'm going to leave in 3 months. So that could be one way that you could go about it. But it's always best to be honest and transparent. In my opinion, it's a small world, and you just never know. So the Mahogany Telederm Nurse Internship, that application closes next month. I want to mention two really important things about that. So last week I'm talking to you about how I'm staying organized with that, and I was thinking about Monday.com or Canva. Well, now I'm thinking about Notion. So Notion, I actually have to give Dr. Laura Scott credit. She makes content on the internet. And she talked about Notion a lot. She actually, I don't know if she still does, but she had put together a template and she would sell that template. I bought that template. But basically, Notion, it's a website, it's an app too, and it's a blank canvas, and you can do anything you want on there. What I use it for, I keep track of like all my journal articles. Like when I come across articles, I keep them all there. I keep ideas over there. It's like a digital planner, and you can create anything: notebooks, calendars, to-do lists. I don't even know. I'm not even a pro at Notion, but you can go on YouTube and you can see all these videos on the different templates, and there are different. So you can create you can have a blank canvas and start your own, or you can go through and see all the different templates that people have. I know a lot of people keep recipes on there, and there's some you can purchase. So I wasn't even considering Note, and right now I use the free version, and they do have like an AI feature on there too. And I wasn't even thinking about Notion, but I was finishing up a audiobook, Automate Your Busy Work. And in that, he mentioned Notion, and I totally had forgot about it. And so I found a video that I watched that I think, and it gave me like, okay, I think this will work for me. And so on Notion, one of the things I love about it is because not only is it organized, you can put links in there, graphics, images, is you can set reminders, and it can be, I think it can integrate with other like Google, because for the interns, I want to have one place where everything's located, where it's clear and organized, and where you can put in reminders, right? Like get everything out of your head. Just have your phone remind you, have your calendar remind you when something's due. And so I'm leaning towards that. I will keep you posted. The other thing I've been thinking about is how I'm going to onboard them. I think the first month, because it starts January 6th. So even then, we'd really only have, I guess, I don't know how many weeks are in January at that point, 3 or 4. But I think January will be dedicated to organization. So getting their digital presence organized, right? Figuring out what their goals are, putting together their own planner, a budget, because it's just like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If their basic needs are not structured and it's out of their head, and they have a plan they can follow without having to think too much, then they're going to be much more readily available for me, right? And it's going to be great structure for them, and they can apply it to other areas of their life. So I think the first month will be a lot of organization, and then some dermatology, right? They're going to need to learn derm. That's like the whole background of everything we'll be doing. And so I think January, that will be the focus. And then, and we'll plan out our calendar together for the year, and then figure out how often we're going to meet, that kind of thing. And so they'll do a module in January for dermatology, and I don't know how much writing I'll have them do in January. Reading or looking at the literature will probably start in February. But right now I'm looking at January, and then every other month I think they'll do another module. So first it'll be derm, then in March it will be marketing, and then May it'll be telehealth, and then July it will be taxes. And so they'll have all that information under their belt before the year is up. So that's another book, Automate Your Busy Work. Wonderful book. It is the audio book, but my tip is, and actually, so that book's over, but I'm going to need to go back to that book and kind of be able to sit down and write down the things that they mentioned, like a lot of the resources. I even sent my executive assistant a copy of that book. She finished that book, like I think in 2 weeks, over the summer. She's been finished that book. And after she finished it, she introduced some new things into our system that have been wonderful. But I purchased another book, a new book already, The Science of Beauty by Dr. Michelle Wong. I think her last name is Wong. She makes content on the internet. Maybe you follow her. Her other name is like Lab Muffins or something. I'm terrible. Let me tell you the right thing. But yeah, so she's a chemist. She has her PhD in a certain type of chemistry. I don't know if it's cosmetic chemistry or what. But yeah, so I got her book. And so my hack for books, which I've mentioned, I always recommend the audiobook if you have a busy life. But my hack is really to buy the ebook, especially on Amazon. So you buy the ebook and then you can use the Amazon Alexa app. It will play the audio for you. And then if you do need to reference the book, the text, like someone like me who writes a lot, and sometimes you want to see the pictures. And I don't know if audiobooks, like they always say, oh, if you have the audio version, you can go to the website and you can look at the appendix. And I never do that. And maybe I should. Okay. Her name is Lab Muffin Beauty Science, but her actual name is Dr. Michelle Wong, and she just says Kim PhD Cosmetic Science. I feel like she said maybe it is just maybe it's cosmetic chemistry. It's something specific she said. And she has like 500,000, 500,000, 500,000. She has like 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, so she makes a lot of content, and it's good. I like the reviews were really good. Some estheticians were down there commenting about the simplicity of it and her breakdown of the ingredients, which I really love. Actually, Dr. Vanita, she called herself Dr. V so much that I don't even remember her full name. It's like Dr. Vanita Rattan. I started watching her during the pandemic along with Dr. Alexis Stevens. What I loved about Dr. V was that she talked about the ingredient list so much and helping you understand how to read the ingredients, the order, the importance. So I love her for that. And she wrote a book too, kind of more for the audience and the public, not really like a textbook. And this one isn't a textbook either. So anyway, I bought the ebook so I can listen to the audio. And then when I need to reference the text, and because apparently she has a lot of pictures in there too, then I can do that and just pull that up and look at that. So that's my tip. And it's usually cheaper than the hard copy. And it might be cheaper than the audiobook too, I want to say. But basically, you kind of get 2 for 1. You get the audio and you get the textbook. The only thing I'll say about the Amazon Alexa app, just like the Adobe app I mentioned last week, it's not intuitive. So it's a little more intuitive than Adobe because Adobe will read the page number. But Amazon Alexa, so you don't have the author's voice, which depending on the book, sometimes it's really nice. It can make the experience that much better. So you don't have that. And it's a little bit hard to kind of rewind forward and backwards in a small segment. It has the feature to rewind and fast forward, but I find that if I want to go to like a specific section, it's either I can hit that button a couple times or I have to just go back to the beginning of that chapter. So that's the only part that would be like the most, the inconvenience of that. But I really love it in terms of being able to get 2 for 1. So that's my tip right there. So the internship. So I did have a brainstorming session yesterday for the podcast with Dr. Shanna Turner. She's an anesthesiologist at University of Maryland. She's going to come on the show and tell us her journey, but also talk about anesthesia, the before and after, what to expect. Really excited about that. But in talking to her, she also has a huge platform on health literacy. She has a beautifully constructed website called Caring for Us, I'm going to say. We're going to start promoting her website because we don't have a website. And I don't have an interest in starting one, but I want to be able to refer people to something. And so we'll be referencing her website, as we start to film again, because it's just beautiful. It's really, really nicely put together. But anyway, I forgot what we were talking about, but she mentioned a population that I don't think about enough are our retired nurses of every level, right? And so I've adjusted the internship application because it used to say active licensure or student enrollment in good standing, but I just adjusted it that you can have an active or retired license, or you can be retired. Um, and so, yeah, if you're, because, we have our retired nurses who are just have a wealth of knowledge, right? And a lot of them like to teach. They still have so much to offer. And yeah, so I've adjusted that. Maybe you're interested in being in the, participating in the internship, sharing your knowledge and still learning some things, right? Maybe you want to learn more about this digital space. Maybe you have ideas for your own business, or maybe you just want to, write and stay in the background. So yeah, I just want to shout her out for bringing them to my attention. And I really want to start having them on this show too, and having them share their perspective on how things have changed over the decades, right? Because they all talk about how healthcare is so different. And so shout out to Dr. Turner for that. And you can look out for her episode. So that's going to wrap us up for the week. This week, we had the election, and on the blog, I went back into the archives of a paper that I wrote in P School comparing the American Nurses Association and the American Medical Association, our stance when it comes to financing healthcare, which is basically those decisions have been based on our ethics. And so I invite you to go over there and read it. One of the interesting things in that article is I put the logos of several organizations that you can be a part of to make a difference, right? Whether it's our profession or you're just a citizen in the community. So many of us see things and we want to make a difference, and sometimes we don't think we alone can make that difference. And so sometimes we're paralyzed and we do nothing. And so these organizations that I've highlighted on the website are community to help you do just that, to have the support you need. Sometimes they literally will give you the script. They'll tell you where to go, who to meet, give you access, open the door and keep it open for you so that you can ask, so that you can see what are the problems, where can I really make a difference? And so I think that's probably my most proudest thing about that article, is being able to highlight these organizations that are out here making a difference and that have room for you to come in and help to carry on those initiatives. So happy to announce that for the DNP Dermatology MPA group, our Friendsgiving is coming up on the 21st in Old Town Alexandria. The great Shanna Miranti will be there. She's with Diversity in Dermatology. She's with the Journal of Dermatology MPs and PAs. She speaks for pharma. She's a mother of 4. She's been around in derm for over 20 years. She's helped start a practice down there. She is just a wealth of knowledge and experience, as well as just a really sweet person and the inspiration for our virtual grand rounds. And so, and our sponsorships. And so she'll be speaking for us. And then really happy that our first meet and greet in Blacksburg will take place. We have our advisor down there, Caleb, and he's been really phenomenal in bringing ideas forward and being willing to share his time and his talent. And so he's helped coordinate with our medical science liaison, Emily, who works with Arcutis. She will come and be the speaker for that event on December 3rd. We have a link now that you can sign up for all of our events on that link, as well as to join the email notification list. Of course, we have our Facebook page. I know not everyone wants to be on Facebook, and you do have to meet criteria for that. And if you're, setting boundaries in your life and not going on social media that much, then you might appreciate an email notification. So you can click on that link and sign up for that, as well as our upcoming virtual grand rounds. We are trying to get a meet and greet in Richmond in December. Stay tuned for that. We're just waiting on a date from our advisor there on when will be the best time. Of course, you can join our new sister group, Derm MPs and PAs of Atlanta. Shout out to Allie. She's the advisor there. She did a beautiful reel this week highlighting the scholarships available for you at the Dermatology Nurses Association. One of the criteria that they all have in common is you do have to have been a member for 2 years. So depending on where you are in your journey, you might have those 2 years. And believe it or not, those 2 years are going to go by regardless. And you might still want to be able to apply for that scholarship in 2 years. So go ahead and check that out. You can sign up for our Diversity in Dermatology Conference, March 27th to the 30th in Louisville, Kentucky. When you sign up, you can pick between 3 workshops, at least for now, aesthetics, dermoscopy, and surgical. We have Erica Berry. She is a nurse practitioner who's going to be leading the aesthetics shop. She has a huge following on social media. The seats are limited for that workshop. At the time that I'm recording, I don't even know how many seats are left. So make sure you go ahead and sign up for that so you don't miss out. Like I said, this week is Afro Tech. It's one of the, I don't know, I think they're the largest tech conference when it comes to Black community. And so I'll be there. It'll be my first one, be my first tech conference. And I have had my eye on Afro Tech for a very, very long time. So next week I'll share all about that. And I was looking at some of my analytics, depending on whatever platform you're on, they will provide you with data analytics, which if you are going to spend time doing any of this, you want to know that it's making a difference. It depends on what your goal is. Some people have numbers they want to hit, but a lot of people that I hear from say they just enjoy they just enjoy the art, right? This is a form of art, and so whatever your goals are, just make sure they're your goals. But anyway, I saw that, which I hadn't really checked the numbers, that a video I did on how to get your first job in dermatology has a pretty good view, like over 200 people. And so next week, I think I'll talk about strategy for getting into dermatology. Of course, I already have the Dermatology Nurse Practitioner Starter Kit available for you, and the From Bedside to Dermatology, a step-by-step guide for nurses ebook. They're both in the virtual preceptor shop. That link is below. I'm still working on the Dermatology DNP Project Ideas book. By next Sunday, I hope to be able to give you an update on when that will be available for purchase. And we'll go into more details about what you can find in there. I was going to do that this week, but I try to keep this under an hour. And so we'll see how that goes. I won't tell you about Afrotech next week. But if the book is ready, then we'll certainly go through the contents in there. It's turning out to be really good, much bigger. At first, I thought it was just going to be a quick little thing like always, but it's turned out to be it's over 100 pages right now. And so I'm really excited to be able to bring this to you and to help you along your journey, right? You already have enough to do and decisions to make. And certainly if you want to be able to focus your project on dermatology, I want to help you do that because I know you already don't have experience. You probably don't have that many professors who have derm experience who you can lean on. And so I really want this book to be able to be that support that you need. And of course, you can always message me. We can hop on a call and do some brainstorming. I love that. Thank you so much, those of you who have done that with me. It's the inspiration for this book. So if you haven't already, please subscribe so that you'll be notified when I go live again next time. If this content doesn't relate to you, but you know someone who might enjoy it, please share it with them. And I'll see you again here next Sunday around this time. And of course, I'll be online all week. And so looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching, for leaving a comment, and for your support. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful week. Please take the time to take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.